Namaste. Blessed love and peace in Rastafari. Hey, it's Jay. Yo, there's some notes, some considerations, some of them things that we share that I'm stray from doing on a regular basis as I do previously because got other things, priorities, life. So, here's an update. What's going on? What's happening? This what is. Actually, we got the schoolhouse up. I ain't got no roof. That's reasons for that, but it is what it is. Ain't a big deal. Weather's still temperate. It ain't a big thing, but it's a big thing because it's happening and it's done, and it's still like amongst contentious conditions. So there's blessings in this. Then there's also responsibilities and obligations. And as all this is happening, at the same time, we getting love from additional kinfolk from additional places. So amidst that, I am in the process of relocation, going to Oberlin, about an hour away from here, in Ohio. Underground Railroad, Liberal Arts College, cornfields. So that's what it is. Building schoolhouse there. I visit on recent occasions and considerable receptivity amongst kinfolk there. Meet with the rainbow, and by the rainbow I'm talking about proper. Well, I'm not going to be contentious at this point, but I meet with myriads of the brethren of different colors and ethnicities and creeds, even just by just walking. So, and positive conversations, feedback, invitation, discussion, substance, all them things. So, gifts, exchange, and all that. So, because of that, we got a schoolhouse in Oberlin at this moment. We got a spot. We doing things. So now we in the heights and we in the fields. So that's where I'm going, to the fields, and continuing and chopping it up with the kinfolk in Oberlin, who are who have less of the. I've been in the heights for a long time and sharing what I do. So now it's a matter of being in a place where the additional kinfolk, and sharing it accordingly. All right. So that is what I'm doing, and the duration is indefinite. It may be a few weeks, maybe a few months, it may be a few further. It's only an hour away, so there is some proximity. But this is the methodology. This is the intentionality. This is the plans. All by the grace of the Most High Elohim, known by many names and beyond all the names. Plan is for me to be in the Oberlin, rest up, get some nature, chop it up with the kinfolk, and build the schoolhouse further. We've got a program, we've got a curriculum now of study. It is a certificate program where kinfolk can complete the program, get a certificate, and then share the convo with certain backing and credentials. So it's all, cats wonder like, what is the board of accreditation for the certification and da 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 da. You can look it up. If you don't know, you better ask somebody. But it's all the way legit, and proper, and actually very substantial and thorough. So beyond the boards. So the boards of Canada. No, I'm not gonna do that because I like the boards of Canada. Anyways, big up. Continuing on, focusing, staying on the path. So that it is staying, going to do the schoolhouse, building the conversation, initiating the curriculum and the studies. I'm seeing lots of military joints here. This one looks like a military helicopter right now. Not a transport joint, but it's not one of the medical joints, and it don't look like one of the billionaire joints either, because it's going too slow. Anyway, and it's making a lot of noise. So, anyways, facts. Schoolhouse curriculum. We have a convo. It's on the website, Crooked River Straight Path. It's a menu, the convo bodega menu. That's our curriculum. So when somebody completes the entirety of that menu, that's grounds for certification. So And then with that, yo, continue to be a teacher in one of the schoolhouses. Oh, I gotta remember, we got wind here, and I gotta be mindful because I'm not doing my headset thing or whatever. But anyway, all right. So, um, anyways, that's the methodology at this point. We're working on a number of things as well. We have a lot of materials, and it's further accessible. It's further presentable. We have some booklets and other things that are put together, formatted, even self-published through one of the online services referred to as Blurb. So these are things in the works. These are things that are available. These are things that we're utilizing to facilitate the methodology of education. Right. So that's what's happening at this moment. But there's the tangibility of the actual focal place for instruction, and then a program of study, tangibility of completion, and then some practicality of application upon completion of the program. Now, in this duration, the schoolhouse that we have set up here in the Heights at this moment, that is without a roof at the moment, yo, what's going on with that? Yo, we invite kinfolk to come through. One of the considerations is students coming out to Oberlin, spending a few days, camping out, because the accommodations are it's not hardcore, because hardcore gets hardcore than this, but it is like it's modest. So, anyways, but kinfolk are welcome to come out, go through the program, whatever. I mean, we've been talking with kinfolk for a while now already. But when kinfolk are at a point of being able to be comfortable and taking on some of these reins, and then hosting at the schoolhouse here in the Heights, yo, we with that. And we build. It's got to be proper, and we're making arrangements accordingly, because we got accountability and everything else like that. Safety, comfort, righteousness. So, but yo, it's a cooperative effort. So, kinfolk here in the Heights and nearby wanted to take up some of the reins of being teachers and sharing. And additionally, there's that. There's a co-op, a food co-op element to this as well. So there's for the economy, we're working with silver, cultivating the silver trade. So there's that element of it as well. There are additional projects, but one step at a time. Still working on marriage, wife, children, family. I'm relinquishing the general tool and technique of to-do lists. I'm getting beyond that, because it becomes rather encumbering, if we can say that, imprisoning. Otherwise, to-do lists, to be honest, I mean, to-do lists are very beneficial. They help organize thoughts and everything else like that. But at this moment, at this point, if anything beyond what I can recall immediately, and this might be perceived as an invitation for Alzheimer's or dementia, or whatever, but there's just so much going on, so much I have, and so much weight that comes with that, comes with each one. Yo, if I have to write it down to remember it, yo, maybe it's not necessary to be doing all that. So I'm focusing increasingly on priority: God, family, school, village. So to-do lists, all the projects and everything. And that's the other thing too. My focus personally is increasingly on just providing education. I'm going into teacher mode. I've been saying this for actually years at this point, but it's serious now. Serious. It's not even like, it's beyond even my personal volition, as much as this always is. But like seriously focusing on just teacher, and a lot of the projects that were on my to-do list, now they're on the to-do list for kinfolk who come through and who have an inclination of again continuing with the work and the mission, and additionally. So I'm reaching that stage of inheritance and bestowments and things like that. But there's a necessity of preparation, so that kinfolk who accept that, have the inclination for that, as they want, are also capable and skilled and learned to do it proper like. So anyways, that's what all this is. So that's where things are at the moment. Like I said, maybe back in the Heights, a few weeks, a few months, we see how it rolls. See how much Oberlin continues to share love, and to say, you know what, that's enough, and maybe you should take take a look at what's going back at the heights. So we see how long that takes. And obviously the prospect of marriage or whatever else, marriage also influences circumstances and migration. So anyways, that's where things are. Wind. Proper autumn. You can see right here, proper autumn. So anyways, all right, that's it. Anything else? Oh yeah, I'm dealing with a strained back right now. I would like just to be lying down on my back and just resting, rejuvenation. Dealing with a broken toe. Woe is me, woe is me. Something else to share. Working on greeting cards for holy days throughout the year with the Sona Ashram, Sangha Yosef, Rastafari. So that's big. It has begun. It is continuing, and so I just share that. Throw that in the mix. Anything else at this moment? Anyway, all right. So now I'm going to get into a spiel. If there's anything else that occurs to me, I might share that after the spiel. But here's the spiel. I'm trying to think of how much further details to give about the schoolhouse. Right now, we have a tent, we have a teepee. We're working on something. I'm not gonna give details. The consideration is to make it comfortable for kinfolk, being particularly mindful of young sistren, particularly any who may stay for a duration, having proper accommodations, safety, comfort, and all them things. So, anyways, that's just a general reference. I mentioned also additional projects, but I'm going to avoid details because, like I said, one step at a time, getting away from the to-do lists and all the planning, everything, and let it build. Let it be increasingly cooperative, organic, and invite kinfolk to take up leadership, share their vision. That's something that's shared recently. Respecting our brother's vision. So that's one thing right there. And then I'm also going to share this joint right now. I was going to think about sharing this at the end, but I'm going to share it right now whilst I think about it. There's a question. So one, respecting our brother's vision. And the second one that just occurs right here recently, just in recent moments, is background quick. Confucius, Confucius, the teacher from Chinese tradition thousands of years ago, shares a nugget of wisdom, a gem, that talks about a leader bestowing on others responsibilities, tasks that people can handle. So don't belabor people with things that they can't handle. Even though there may be a necessity, emergency, or whatever, give people, for somebody who's in that kind of position, give people that capability, or give something that, make a solicitation that people can actually complete, and be mindful of what people complete. Know who you're asking and what they can do, and how feasible it is for such kinfolk. So that's something I continue to have to work on. So just because something might be easy for us, don't mean it's easy for other people. And in that respect, marriage. Here's the consideration. Here's the question. Respecting our brother's vision, and then here we go. Simple question. Is the 17-year-old postmodern woman capable of marriage? There it is. I'm going to leave it at that. So I'm going to give some space here to get into the spiel, because this spiel is a little bit heavy. It is light, and there's density. So we also got notes. My intention is to post the notes, so it's available on the IG, maybe also the Crooked River Straight Path. So now that we've had some space, now we get into the spiel. But how about starting on the right page? The right page. Starting on the right page. Starting on the right page. The right page. The right page. I hope I took the right page of photography. And we're photographing these notes. Photographing these notes. Here we go. Number one. This is kind of like the title, but this is also the context of pretty much the entire joint here. Natural world, imperial world, and piety world. I've talked before about racism. I've talked before about classism, all the isms. I've talked before just about simply like predatoriness and piety and that binary. But there's like something that kind of like permeates even that, because predatoriness can be seen in the natural world as well as within the imperial world. So here's what we look at. Just what I just mentioned: the natural world, the imperial world, and the piety world. The natural world is just the law of the jungle. That's what it is. The imperial world is the law of conquest. And then the piety world is the law of balance. People, the barbarians, are the ones who are in the natural world. Literally lions, tigers, bears, wolves, and whatever human beings or other kinfolk who live in those conditions. So it's just like that primal experience, natural world. Then the imperial world is the one of the civilization, quote unquote, cities, city-states, Babylon, and all them things, where the methodology is enslavement, subordination, subjugation, devaluation, domestication, all them things. So conquest, that's the law. Conquering others, always continual venture, endeavor of being above others. That's just nature, whether it's black, white, whatever, religion, all across the board, conquest. So that's the imperial world. And people want to leave the natural world in order to get some safety, because how many cats are wrestling with lions these days? It's not the most safest thing, particularly when the lion is hungry. So that collective and continuing endeavor of safety and additionally technology and innovation becomes the city, and that becomes imperialism, because people vie for each other and vie over each other. So there's this continuing back and forth between humans progressing between the natural world and the imperial world. Some have a further affinity towards the imperialism. Some have the natural further affinity towards the natural. And so amidst all this, there is the piety, the walk of balance, being involved in both, having a respect for both, having a relationship with both, and having a continual engagement and diplomacy with both. And so the law of piety is different than the law of the jungle and the law of conquest. It is a law of balance, of ethics and walking in that How about that? Walking in that path. So anyways, those are the three elements. And when we look at today's society, today's circumstances about global civilization, globalization, all the institutions, systems, and all this, that, and the other, all that, it's imperialism. And imperialism, like in its most like raw, unadulterated form, is just like annihilation of all phenomena, particularly material, for the sake of conquest, for the sake of control. So that's the consideration. So it's not a matter of being mad at imperialism. It's just like recognizing it for what it is. And if somebody's finding it disagreeable, get some distance from that. Stop feeding from it. There it is. So now I'm getting into a little bit too much detail, but there it is. Now, recognizing that, so what we do with our schoolhouse, which is titled Academy Piety, is teach a way of piety, share a way of piety, a way of balance. And again, no better than or worse than anybody else. It's just a matter of like, for those who have the inclination towards the balance, towards this piety, here's a methodology of doing it. This is what we share. So there's that. Now, further into imperialism, it's beneficial to recognize that imperialism is colorless. It's not a white phenomena. It's not a Middle East phenomena. It's not an African phenomena. It's a colorless phenomena. It is some enigmatic, ubiquitous, just kind of uh, fear, hatred, greed, da 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 da, that has the propensity of affecting any being. Um, and so it's beneficial to recognize that amongst all the isms are much of the isms. Organized religion, nationalism, tribalism is significantly enveloped in the endeavor of imperialism, trying to conquer each other. And then having all different types of pretenses of why that is, how that is, why it should be this and the other. And there's a game, or I won't say game because I don't want to reduce it to that kind of thing, but there are ploys of guilt tripping, and additionally, when one imperialistic community or entity experiences atrocities from another, but each one is doing it to each in one way or another, and it's not right. I mean, any atrocity is wrong. The suffering, the wrongdoings are wrong, but at the same time, communities are utilize those afflictions as a way of getting higher leverage of just continuing in the endeavor of imperialism. So it's colorless. Now, as we recognize that, there is definitely racism, there is definitely all these different discriminations along these different binaries, and so that's actual. However, when we look at contemporary geopolitics, particularly with the United States on this continent, Western civilization, we can observe an evolving phenomenon of this enigma of imperialism, and that phenomena is one of black power, white imperialism. Um, First, it's beneficial to recognize that um, a lot of people just automatically equate global imperialism to white folk, and saying, oh, Europeans just that's the face of global imperialism. And there's fears about Asia, China, Japan, Eastern civilization competing and rising up against the historic establishment of white imperialism or whatever around the world. It's beneficial to recognize it's just the face. That's all it is. It's a facade. Because the nature, the phenomenon of imperialism just infests within beings and then like sucks out the substance of the being, and then utilizes the strongest attributes of that entity in order to continue that process of conquest, divide and conquer, regardless of what the binaries are. And so what this phenomena of imperialism finds in recent centuries and generations is the attributes of European kinfolk, the nature of European kinfolk, and as well as the nature of African kinfolk, and are and kind of like draining the substance and just utilizing like this is somewhat of a strained kind of explanation, but I'm trying not to share this particular example that I'm thinking of because it's very graphic, and it involves an actual murder. So I don't want to give this example in honor of the people who are involved. So, but it's a beneficial example of what I'm talking about. So I'm wrestling with that. But anyways, it's people. It's just a face. It's a facade, and it's very easy to do the binary of divide and conquer. And so there's this uber cognitive experience and methodology of institutionalization, individualism, um, uh, demographic pigeonholing, and manipulation of policy based upon these elements, and then devised propaganda to do divide and conquer, to obstruct communication, cooperation between different demographic pigeonholes, and then manipulate communities, individuals, families. Actually, just gets reduced to just individuals, and then not even just individuals, but just like bodies accordingly. So, anyways, this is the methodology, and primarily for the past few centuries, it has a white face because that's just what it is. But at the same time, there's a powering of it because looking at the healing attributes of black folk, of Africans, and additionally, there's a tremendous miraculous experience of strength and healing and well-being, rejuvenation, power that exists within black folk. And well, I don't want to get too much caught up in this because this is just the beginning of what I'm sharing at the moment. The point is that that these attributes, black and white, are utilized, fused together in this methodology of imperialism, pitted against each other, and confusion, all types of smoke and gray, to keep people deluded from what the actuality, what's happening. And in the meanwhile, going out and conquering the rest of the world with this binary. Now, it's pretty much it's expended at this point. The efficacy of it has been significantly diluted. So there's an evolving methodology of the imperialism, but a lot of people seem to have yet to even catch up to what's been going on for the past few centuries, particularly this past century. So it's beneficial to articulate that for that purpose, because people are still caught up in these binaries, and it seems so ridiculous. Like, can't even. All right, how about yourself? Okay, I'm glad to hear that. I'm talking about it right now. You know what? And you know what else? It's not getting any better. And how about this? It's not getting any worse.
That's so true.
Aha. Now, I talked with you before, yeah? Now, I'm trying to think of what we talked about specifically before. Okay.
But I can't think about what specifically, or one dimension of the conversation.
Yeah.
But I know it had to do with this spiritual warfare.
Okay.
I know it had to do with what's going on in this world.
Okay.
Which all combines together.
Okay.
And I think basically the separation of people themselves.
Aha. Yeah.
Not just race against race.
Of course.
Themselves.
That's what we're talking about exactly at this moment. So what do you consider is the solution?
Find your way back to your God.
Aha. Okay.
And be within that.
Okay.
Be at peace and be restful in that situation.
Okay.
I hate to sound selfish.
Ah.
It's a selfish movement right now.
Okay.
In regards to that.
Yeah. But see.
You have to keep family involved.
Yes.
Keep that close-knit.
Yes.
Together.
Yes.
But, all of us are individuals.
Okay.
We're all set on this earth for a certain task.
There it is.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to have some selfishness within you.
Okay.
When it comes to having your one-on-one with the God that you serve.
Most def. Absolutely, brother. I absolutely agree. Now, when we talk about that, what I also share is, like, from the teachings, like I might have told you before, like, I'm earth. Cats ask me, like, who am I? What I do? Where I come from? I say I'm the earth. That's what I claim. My ancestors are from many different lands of this globe. And so that's my allegiance. I love everybody. I don't agree with everybody, but that's okay. So when you talk about selfishness, and I again, words are approximations. Words are very beneficial and necessary, but at the same time, there's the letter of the law, and then there's the spirit of the law. There's the letter of what we say, and then there's the spirit of what we say. So when I'm listening to you, hear what you're saying, you say selfishness, that's what you're saying at the surface, but what I hear what you're saying is like an altruism. So that's what I'm hearing. But it's an altruism that's knowledgeable about self. And I think about some of the ancient teachings, particularly coming from India, and additionally, that talk about self with a small s, and then self with a big S. So the self with a small s is all the selves that we see, all the individual separations. That's the small s. Then there's the big self, which is the collective, the oneness of the whole universe. When we talk about the Most High God, by whatever name we refer to that, God, Elohim, Allah, Brahman, Nirvana, Tao, whatever name we attribute to that, we are all part of that oneness, and that oneness exists within us. So I agree with you that it begins with that knowledge of self within ourselves. And exactly as you said as well, that's so necessary, but then it goes beyond that, because like, we are earthly beings. We feed from the earth. We have this material need. So we have to delve into the forest. We have to delve into the garden and our relationship with the phenomena that surrounds ourselves. Family, foundation, and additionally. So we have to find a continual way of being reconciled and being healthy and interacting with the life that we see around ourselves. I mean, we can recognize ultimately everything is an illusion. Everything is impermanent, everything is changing, but at the same time, at this moment, we have to be mindful of what we do at this moment. So we have guidance, being with the family, investing in our relationships, taking care of the people around us, particularly the vulnerable, proper relationship between man and woman, That's a sacred relationship. The propensity for the perpetual life exists within that bond between man and woman. So it's a holy, sacred thing, but at the same time, we can get caught up pleasure and pain and confusions within that binary, within those things. So again, it's a matter of having that discipline about what is healthy, what's not healthy, what's necessary, and what might not necessarily be necessary at this moment.
That point you just made, in regards to the bind between man and woman.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're drifting more to the pleasure or more to the pain.
Aha.
With the things that's going on
Ah.
in regard to our acts.
Okay.
In regards to dealing with one another.
Yeah.
Homosexuality has taken precedence
Ah.
over this world.
Ah.
To me, it has separated that bond.
Yes.
Whether it's woman and woman, man and man,
Right.
it's separated what God intended it to be.
And that's where we get into the important distinction between the selfishness that you described in terms of the knowledge of the divine presence within ourselves, and then that selfishness that is proscribed in that behavior that you just referenced, LGBTQ conditioning. And that's not hating anybody. I love everybody. But again, don't necessarily agree with everybody. And that's okay. We can still respect each other and have a conversation accordingly. So what I've observed and what you described in terms of the LGBTQ, just to be honest, there's a selfishness now. And to be honest, a lot of it is very, very extremely intelligent, extremely knowledgeable, extremely astute in addressing the political concerns of different communities, and so can speak knowledgeably and with an empathic voice about the tribulations that many other communities are experiencing. But at the same time, it's premised on ego. It's premised on individualism. And that premise of individualism separates itself from that experience of family, from the bonds, the obligations, because the notion of personal freedom, that's actually a religiosity.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
It's sort of a personal question.
Okay.
I have to answer it, but,
Beautiful.
where did you matriculate?
So my schooling,
Yes.
first school I attend, I was there yesterday. Ruffing Montessori,
Okay.
kindergarten through 8th grade, age 3 to 13,
Okay.
11 years.
Yeah.
Heights,
Okay.
class of 92,
Okay.
4 years. From there, now first I got to say School of Life, and I got so many teachers beyond the formal education, but we're looking at the conventional education right now. So Heights, then the Hampton University. Hampton.
Excellent.
Oh, Hampton, a thought sent from heaven above. All right, so I sang that yesterday. Just a side note, that's the school anthem. So, anyways, Hampton University, study economics. From economics at Hampton, Case Western Reserve University. Aha. MBA study graduate school from Case. Now I've relinquished all my credentials as alumnus. Like I've let go of those things because I've recognized the trappings of that. I respect my teachers. I respect the people that provide me with this education continually. But at the same time, I don't try to like flex or whatever else like that because I have to pay a price for that too. And so it's like, oh, no. Anyways, but you asked the question, so I'm just being factual. Case. Now, when I was at Case, I did a study abroad. England. Manchester, England, Manchester Business School. Beautiful experience, make kinfolk from all around the world, respect. From there, I go to Georgetown University for law school. And then from when I'm in Georgetown, I attend a program conducted by Howard University, but it's done in South Africa. It's the, what's that? In the land of Xhosa.
Okay.
Are you familiar with where that is?
I'm not.
Kind of, sort of. Western Cape, Cape Town. Cape Town. So the university was actually the University of Western Cape. So beautiful experience there. I traveled around Africa with my kinfolk there. Again, like if we're going to talk about schools, I met with the Rastafari in Zimbabwe. That's a Bob Marley track right there. So anyways, all that's my school too. And so all that shapes me significantly. You see them dreads and everything else like that. So you see the manifestation of the truth and the wisdom and the teachings that are provided from all my teachers. So anyways, that sums up much of my formal education. But like I said, I've been to a number of places. And a lot of this, even when I'm in those specific locations and specific institutions, much of the learning that I experience is outside of the classroom. Having these type of conversations, and additionally, in the field. Well, I mean, but everybody's got education. Everybody who's walking on this earth for an extended period of time, particularly, has profound education, regardless of what. You know, I was watching a documentary on the native kinfolk in the Wurundjeri land, which is Australia, Aboriginals, and the way they were talking. Now these are aunties who are talking, and just as I listed out my credentials, my CV, my resume of all these institutions, what she was talking about is this. She said, "I am so and so, and I've raised 5 children." Whoop, right there. That's her CV. That's her credentials. And as she spoke that, it was the equivalent of somebody saying, "I earned my PhD from Harvard University." And it had that weight. I could feel that when she said, "I've raised 5 children." I could feel like every day, every story that she has in raising those children, feeding, clothing, bathing the children on a daily basis. Yo, man, that's respect right there. That's credentials. That's credentials. So we got to ask those questions too. When we ask about the matriculation, we have to ask about also the matriation as well. How about that? And the patriation as well. So those are higher credentials. One thing. When we teach our young folks accordingly, with the mindset, preparing the mindset, we prepare for so many generations. Since World War II particularly, we prepare the youth to just fix their mind on university, fix their mind on graduating from university. But we don't say what to do afterwards. Like, we just presume that as given. Like, okay, get the degree and there it is. And what we find, particularly in recent generations, from the X generation to today, is that when students are graduating, unemployed, overqualified, doing things they could have been doing 5 years, 6 years, $5,000, $500,000 ago.
Or doing things that they didn't go to school to do.
That's what I'm saying. Exactly. So
Daughters doing exactly that.
exactly. So what I'm saying is, but we gotta take responsibility ourselves. So when we're preparing the youth, instead of just because parents can just get in their grind and just say, I gotta stack up cheese to send my kid to the university and that's it. But no, that's not it. So instead of just, and it's somewhat of a mental relief, because then parents don't have to think about what the children are learning. They don't have to think about the responsibility and everything else like that. They just attribute it to the teachers. And as long as they get the nice report card, okay, we just keep on the grind. But that's not it. So here's another way of doing it. And it's not necessarily either or, but just adjusting it to prepare the youth to think about being married, and think about being married as that credential. Think about raising children as that credential. So instead of just the university as the be-all to end-all, it's a matter of like, yo, be married at 20, be married at 22, be married at 25, and start having children. And in doing that, the children, the youth, intrinsically and organically, autonomously find the ways of living, find what's necessary to learn, instead of just going out and partying for 4 years or 8 years or 10 years or whatever else, because they've been trained to do that. Now they have to think about life, relationship, reconciliation, and village, and additionally. Peace and blessings to you, brother. All right. Academy piety is what we're talking about, and we're just getting into imperialism, black power, white power, not white power, but black power, white imperialism, and how the phenomena of imperialism has conducted this fuse. Continuing. All right, how you doing, brother? All right. Well, you know you're gonna make me stand now. You're walking up the hill, so I've got to greet you with my hospitality. Okay. What's going on? What's this? What's going on with this?
That's me.
That's you?
Yeah.
You wanna give me some explanation? I'll just read it.
Just read it.
Okay. Peace and blessings to you, brother. All right. All right. So we continue on. Black power, white imperialism, divide and conquer. Don't be fooled by the surfaces. And what that also does, in that binary, is people like posse up based on those surface things, and at the same time they're doing it to each other. They're being predatory towards each other, and in the name of antagonism towards others, but just eating each other up, and not being able to discern who can be trusted and who not, because we're all the same color, we're all the same creed or whatever else, but we're at each other. So it's a matter of recognizing something deeper, something further meaningful, something further genuine in terms as a premise of coalition. Now, again, that's not hating on homogeneity, but homogeneity, when when it has a genuineness and a humbleness, stays in its own place. It doesn't venture out and try to conquer others. And in staying in its own place, it knows everybody intrinsically. It knows the lineages of people. It knows the nature. It knows the relationship with the trees, the animals, and additionally, all right, peace and blessings to you, bro. All right. Yeah, yeah. Okay. 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 Beautiful. Beautiful. So here's a question for you, and I'll share this experience with you. So I got a sister, a collegial sister, for many, many years. Dear, dear, beautiful sister. She's a professor at a university, Gallaudet. You familiar with that? Gallaudet? You're like, of course. Now I visited her like a couple years ago. I went to school in D.C. For a number of years. I lived there for a number of years. So I went to go visit her at her campus, at her office. And when I went to the campus, have you ever been there before? No. No? Okay. Yo, first of all, it's like in the middle of the hood. Like there's a gate around the whole thing, you know what I'm saying? So like there's a lot of gentrification nearby recently, but still it's like in the hood, they got a gate over and everything. So I had to walk all around the gate just to get into the campus. But when I got inside, it was so quiet. Now, I love universities. I love the places of learning where people are studying and have that mindset to kind of have those conversations. So I often visit different type of universities just to do that. Went to Oberlin just recently. So when I went there, it was just the most quiet campus I've ever been to. And I was just like, wow, there's so much sense of peace and everything. Now, it was spring break, so it's going to be quieter, but I've been on campuses of spring break, and I know what that is. But it was like beyond, like I could tell like it's been quiet like this for a while. And then like when I went to visit my sister in her office, I told her about that. She's like, duh, like everybody here's deaf. And I was like, yeah, but no, that's not what it is. What it is, I mean, that's an element of it. But what it is like there's an awareness, there's an empathy that I could feel, like just in the vibe of the campus. Like there's an empathy of understanding others, and so when I speak with, or when I communicate with kinfolk who have that experience, I'm aware of, because one of our family friends, me growing up, there was someone who was deaf in her family, and so like I could just see like people have an awareness of dealing with somebody. That sounds so just objectifying, but there's an empathy. That's my point. There's an empathy. People can have an idea of like what it is to feel like difficulty, and then because of that, they have a certain respect for others generally. It's not like given all the time, but that's what I've heard. So my point for that was just to share that story. Just how beautiful Gallaudet is. If you ever have the opportunity, visit. But here, my question is this. Given what your experience is, and what you've learned in life from your experience with hearing and the difficulties therein, and additionally, how do you utilize that in your responsibility as a police officer in dealing with other kinfolk?
Dealing with deaf people or just
Anybody, like, because when you're in a position of authority, like you've got some responsibilities. You can tell people, yo, don't, and you know when we're in a position of authority, like we can do that in a nice way, we can do that in a mean way, and a lot of times people can't say anything to us one way or the other because they don't have the authority that we do. So my question for you is, how has like growing up the way with the experiences that you have, and you communicating that at this moment, how has that influenced you, and how to be an authority for others? Does that make sense?
well, to me,
Even just as a boss, like, because in ways you're a boss. So how does your experience?
as an officer, we don't
Yes,
think as a boss.
I know,
Some
but
of
you
them
still, but you're a servant.
Go boom, they pass.
Okay, yeah,
Meaning by that is they let the badge be bigger than who they are.
right, okay,
So we cannot think as an officer, no matter who you are, black, white, deaf, hearing, no matter what or if you have disability,
Okay.
whatever whoever you are individually, we should all never think let our ego be bigger than our bad.
Right.
Because if you let that happen, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a couple of them you know,
Yeah. We all experience challenges. We can't folk who abuse the authority that's conferred onto them. So, yeah. I mean, and I'm not trying to like make accusations or point fingers, because I got to look at myself all continually. I always like look at myself in terms of criticism. But I'm just thinking like for somebody who experiences particular challenges, that usually, often when we've experienced those challenges and then we rise to a position of authority, then we have certain compassion upon others. It's easier for us to see other people who are experiencing challenges at that moment, and then and speak to that, address that, be like, yo, I see what you're going through right here. I didn't go through that, but I went through something similar. This is what I went through. This is how I got through it. And something this is something you might be able to utilize to help get you through what you're going through as well. So that's what I'm asking. Like, if you have that experience of drawing from the difficulties that you experience, and then applying that to the people that you interact with, the people that you serve and protect when you're on your beat.
I never deal with a deaf person.
Okay.
I would like to.
Okay.
Because I know what they went through.
Yeah.
And I have gone through it myself.
Okay.
So I have lied to an officer to act like I was completely deaf to see how it was like.
Okay.
The experience that I went through, not as an officer.
Okay.
Me trying to make it seem like I'm completely deaf.
I
can do that.
Okay.
So I have a hearing aid on.
Sure.
But I didn't speak.
Okay.
I did not open my mouth or try to do nothing like imitation, just to say if I was on body damage.
Okay.
I don't want them to be, the deaf person discriminating me because I'm being ignorant.
Okay.
Technically that is ignorant.
Okay.
So what I did was see if I could feel the similarity of what, I don't know if you paid that much attention with the deaf and the police.
Okay.
You know how many the percentage of officers that kill black. You know the percentage of officers that kill white. Don't know the percentage of officers that harm disability. They always talk about autism, training what autism is, bullshit like that.
Yeah.
Everything about autism.
Okay.
But what about deaf people?
Okay.
You can type in anywhere, Google, YouTube, type in officer that kills, officer shot or killed deaf. And it postulates
Wow.
that doesn't have a exact percentage. It's pretty big.
Okay.
For one deaf attorney to have 150 cases that he has to deal with that ain't even unsolved. But there's more after that.
Wow.
So
What's the type of scenario when that happens? Like, is it a matter of just like the police officer giving a command, the person doesn't respond, then the police officer gets aggressive, and then by the time the police officer gets aggressive, then the person responds like, "Yo, what you doing?" And then like, is that kind of like the typical kind of thing, or is that okay?
Or like, there's a video where I'm at a traffic stop.
Okay.
I see a man, a senior citizen, walking down the street. I might give me away. I just see that senior citizen, right? Walking down the street.
Yeah.
A cane in one hand, a knife in the other hand.
Wow.
What do you think he's doing?
Don't know. But these days it could be a much of anything. But yeah, I mean, we have to be mindful. It could be something that hurts other people, so we have to be mindful of that. But at the same time, it could be also something very comparatively innocent. So we got to like be dutiful about how we approach that situation.
Okay. Now, you're sitting at the traffic light, watching him a nice little minute.
Okay.
You see him carving while walking across the street.
Okay.
Now,
You
what
said
do
carving?
Really doing?
I see him doing what? Carving, you said?
Engraving, carving.
Okay.
The cane.
Okay.
While walking.
While walking.
So now,
Okay.
you've been watching for nice little.
Okay.
I a minute and a half.
Okay.
Now, what you really think he's doing?
So, I mean, to be honest, it just seems unusual because, first of all, if somebody's carving something in a cane, like if he's making a decoration, I presume he has some skills to be able to like multitask like that, walking and carving at the same time. So, usually, if somebody's going to be carving, they're going to sit and like pay attention to what they're doing. So I'm like, it's like mixed signals that I'm hearing right now. So it seems in some ways comparatively innocent, but at the same time, like it could be like a front. He could be like just pretending and doing something else. But if he was going to be pretending, then why would he display it to begin with anyways? If he's trying to like hide or whatever, it's just like, yeah, I know, that's what I'm saying. So if he had something bad intended, then why wouldn't he just hide it and then like spring on somebody or whatever? So if he was intending something bad, then he wouldn't just be carving whilst he's walking. So I'm presuming it's comparatively innocent, but again, I got to be careful about that. So I'm listening. It sounds like you're saying something like that actually happened.
So, you watching him for a nice little minute.
Yeah.
Now, you get out the car, drop your weapon. Drop your weapon. You said it 10 times.
Yeah.
You keep walking. So you assume he's not listening to you?
Okay. Yeah.
He might have a hearing problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
So somebody else is by him, tap, and say, look, officer. So now I'm approaching you.
Yeah.
Carving the knot. I'm still carving the cane.
And tapping.
I'm not
Yeah.
being aggressive.
Right. Exactly. Well, I'll tell you this. I'll show you this story. So, I mean, basically what you're describing is just having basic respect. Because if somebody has proper respect, they're going to think, this doesn't make sense. Something's going on here. Let me take some time. When somebody doesn't have respect, then they just go into automatic kill mode kind of situation. They're just like, I don't care about this person's life. I'm just going to go da-da-da-da-da. So again, it's having basic respect. And so that's what I'm saying. Now, I'll share with you a story. Like one time, now I'm a graduate of law school. I didn't take the U.S. bar because the U.S. Constitution does some nasty things, and I couldn't practice that law. So I catch some bad things from that. But when I was in law school, I finished my first year, and I traveled overseas. Went to Europe, then went to Africa. Now, when I was in Europe, I went to France, in Paris, and I was in the train station, and there was a brother there who was running a scam. What he would do is he would like collect all the baggage carts, and then he would sell it to people when he was in the train station. People could get it for free, but he was having it all to himself and then selling it. So I was looking for a car baggage, whatever, a baggage cart, and he went to go get one, and I took one from his. He had like a stack of like 4 or 5, so actually maybe 2 or 3. So anyways, then he got mad at me, and he was yelling at me, this, that, and the other. And then as he was doing that, here comes a police officer. And I'm like, oh, here we go. I gotta get ready to get insulted and everything else like that, because that's what I'm accustomed to here in the States. This is over 20 years ago. So now I gotta prepare myself for the disrespect and everything else, just to explain, I'm just doing what's fair. These are free. He's trying to like run a scam and everything else like that. So but the thing is, when this officer approaches, who's French, he's actually African, but he's a French officer. The way he approaches is all peaceful, just like you were talking about. Instead of what I'm used to, even when I graduated from Heights, what I'm used to, when I was a student at Heights, 14 years old, the police officer would stand on the sidewalk, like intimidating, just watching the students walk by, like, I'm the law, or be obedient. And so it was like this fear. So that's what I'm accustomed to. Like whenever it being in question, the officer always having a hand on the gun.
In my opinion, they still.
Well, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of deficiency. But meanwhile, like I don't have the luxury to kind of have that conversation because his hand's on the gun at that moment. But that's what I'm accustomed to. Even when it's a civil conversation, it's always the hand on the gun. At any second, it can go into something different. That's what I'm accustomed to. And it takes a certain amount of patience to interact with somebody like that. So I've grown up years and years. Now when I'm in France, I see this officer coming. I'm like, oh, here we go. I got to get ready for this now. And I'm in France. Mm-hmm. But it was completely different. And so the way he comes up into the situation, his hands are behind his back. Like carefree. Nothing there, whatever. He just comes back very slowly. And he says, qu'est-ce que se passe? What's going on here? And just his energy was completely different.
I didn't feel threatened. I felt like, yo, this cat is like talking, like he's like actually interested in what's happening here, and maybe there might be a solution. So then I started speaking in French, like, yo, look at him, he's got all these carts, I just got one, these are free. And so the officer just was like, all right, continue on, and that was it. And I was like, whoa, that wasn't hectic, that wasn't like static, that wasn't hate, that wasn't shade, that was just like, yo, that was fair right there. What's going on? I'm not used to that. So, but that's my point. It's like what you said, like a certain situation, we can respond to it in some way, and we can respond to it in another way. And when somebody doesn't have that respect for life or for certain types of life, like the way the person responds to a suspicious incident, because there is somebody with a knife, there is genuine suspicion. It's like, okay, if somebody's charged with the responsibility of taking care of other people's life, he has a responsibility of saying what's going on, because it could be somebody who's doing something. So he has a responsibility, but it's about how we do it, and approaching it with respect, and then being like, okay, here it is. So that's what it is. So that's, I guess, what I'm talking about when you're talking about growing up as a deaf man, being the first black deaf officer, and additionally, my thought is that you probably have a further respect for people, to know what people are going through, to be able to say, yo, here's something, I don't know what's going on here, but yo, talk to me, what's happening here? So that's I guess that's what I'm talking to.
Yeah, so a lot of that situation, most officers does not understand body language.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
So I lose his hearing, but I gain all these
Exactly.
body language.
Right.
Also a part of communication.
Right.
And a lot of people in the hearing ward don't understand.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say it, but look what today's society going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aha. So now here's my next question, and this might be some fruits from our conversation. So, do you ever do like a workshop with your brethren on the force, in your department or with other officers?
Oh, what's up?
Do you ever do a workshop where you teach people about body language, where you say like this is how, like, here's the situation, this is the person's body language, this is what you can see what they're doing without them saying anything? Do you ever have it give a workshop or teach about that, what you've learned about that? That might be something to think about. Your fellow officers might be able to benefit from learning about some just basic things about how to read people's body language.
Yeah.
So that might be very helpful.
It might be, but some people, I mean,
some people might not care, but
most people don't care.
but many people may care. It may surprise you how many people do care, and those people who do care and don't know can benefit from that. And when they benefit from them, then they can talk to the other people, but like, yo, no, you should listen to him, because yo, he knows what he's talking about. I was there in the field yesterday, and I talked to this dude, and that was what it was. So yo, listen to what's going on. So it may not happen overnight, but it's building steps. So that's one consideration. Talking to maybe some superiors or whoever is responsible for that, and just be like, yo, one day, just give a workshop. Here's some things you can look at, just basic body language about what people are doing, what's going on, if they're tense or otherwise. Here's how you can read their body language. So even the people who work in the academy and give training, to teach them about the body language, so that they can teach them in the regular program.
I did try that at the academy, but
okay. Well, I mean, you might have to get some experience first and get some credibility. Get like, yo, you still a student? What you talking about? Telling us what to do. But I don't know if you've gone there since then, and since you've been in the force and everything. But I mean, again, doors closed one day, the next day it might be open. Might be a different person making that decision. So. But I think that's something that may be very beneficial, just in terms of opening up people's eyes to be further aware, and then be further respectful, and be further. It benefits themselves to be a better officer and know how to have better skills in interacting with people. So it's very practical. So that's just some thoughts from what you described. Okay. Cool, bro.
But also, I noticed that Oregon, they require police officers to know sign language.
Aha. Okay. Yeah. I was at my school where I go to when I'm young staff, from age 3 to 13, Roughing Montessori up on Fairmount, and there's a peace pole that has a proclamation: "May peace prevail upon earth." So it's actually, there's one over there in the Peace Park over here. But so at the school yesterday, when I was looking there, it's in different languages. One is English, one is Italiano, one is Hebrew, There's another one in Swahili, and then there's one in sign language as well. So they had the may peace prevail upon earth in sign language, in American Sign Language. So I appreciate that.
You ever watched the movie Avatar?
Avatar. You know, I have yet to see that one. I don't watch movies that much these days, but I've heard about that. I know that's a very popular movie.
So watch one and then watch two. So two.
Well, Avatar is the one with the aliens, yeah.
With the little blue alien.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Actually, I did see that one. Yeah.
Okay. So
Speaking
Avatar 2
through people. Yeah.
had people they actually sign it.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
The guy named C.J. Jones, and I actually quote him.
And your pamphlet.
Yeah, I actually gave a quote, which is on the first page of the second paragraph. That's his quote. I just took one word off,
Okay.
which was color. I don't use that word.
Okay. So are you talking on the first page?
Yeah.
This one says, "I can prove that anything is possible."
Yes.
It has
That's his
nothing to do
quote.
with being deaf or black or any disability. It has to do with passion and to do greater things in life.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people knew the second one is another quote.
All right.
A lot of people use the word hearing impairment.
Yeah.
Hearing impairment is a negative word.
Yeah.
Just like black nigga. But a lot of doctors use that word.
Yeah, and I appreciate that notion of the hearing being impaired. And like you said, when people get so accustomed to just seeing things in a certain way, they overlook a lot of the things that are going on. And you talk about when something is, when we close our eyes and we have to get accustomed to that, then we start to become increasingly aware of the sounds, the smells, and everything else that's going on around us. And so there's a knowledge, there's a wisdom that comes with that experience.
Mhm.
So that's, again, to be respected. So you're there.
So what you were saying, so kindness is what deaf people can hear.
Kindness.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
And blind people can feel it.
Ah.
Or see it.
Okay.
So,
Interesting.
yeah.
Wow. That's also powerful. I like that balance. So it's not a matter of like a void or like you said, it's not an impairment. It's not a disability. It's a further way of understanding and experiencing the universe and the people and communicating. And so I was talking with a brother just a minute ago before you came up here, and we were talking about like words, and words are important, but at the same time, words are approximations.
Yeah.
Because words help us to communicate what we're thinking, what we're saying, and everything. But at the same time, like they don't say exactly what we're trying to say. We can get a lot of words, and we can get kind of nice with our words, whatever. But whatever it is, the truth, like the ultimate infinite truth of what we're communicating, is still like it's not like, I won't say imprisoned, but it's not conveyed. It's the words are just like a part of it. So the idea is this: we can talk about the letter of the words that we're talking about, and then we can talk about the spirit of the words. And so, like, I can say, like, "Oh man, get out of town." Like, now the actual word I said is "get out of town." That might sound very hostile. Like, yo, he just told me, he's threatening me. He told me to get out of town. But the way it's said, "Yo, come on, man, get out of town." Like, I'm just joking. Like, it's heartfelt. Like, we just joking, we cool, and everything else like that. That's the spirit. So that's what I'm actually communicating. So if people were just to focus on that word, they're like, "Yo, he's hostile." Da 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 da. They're not paying
Like,
attention to the spirit. And so
people
what?
on social media too.
Exactly.
Okay,
We lose all the other things because we're not looking at the eyes, we're not seeing the body
we
features.
Looking at the eye, but we were just thinking with our head,
Well,
figuring out how it is.
what I'm saying, yeah. So what I'm saying is that, like, when we see things in texting, social media, whatever,
Yeah.
like when we're seeing the videos and everything, it's different than what you and I are doing right now. Like, I'm looking at you in your eye, and so there's the energy. We can see what the energy is, what the vibe is, and everything else like that. The body language, as you said before, all that goes into the communication. But in social media, like all of that is hindered. Like, you only see so much, so everything can get diluted and convoluted and manipulated and everything else like that. So and many people are not aware of that. Many people just think, oh, that's what it is. They're just looking at the surface, and they're not looking at what the depth is. They're not looking at the spirit of the word that's being communicated. So when you talk about that hearing, the hearing being impaired, it's a matter of the hearing, just seeing the surface and thinking that's it, and not recognizing that, yo, like the vibe was cool. You know, he's all right. Check, look at everything else that's going on. It's cool. So again, because you have that knowledge, because you have that awareness, that's very valuable. And so it's a matter of finding out how to share that with other kinfolk on the force and beyond the force. Visiting schools, and additionally, like what you're doing, going to the library and talking to people, and being like, look, it's a matter of having respect and looking at the ways, having a basic respect for everybody, and to see and value each person and see what they bring to the table.
I would like to be a SRO, but Cleveland Heights doesn't have one.
What's an SRO?
School Research Officer.
Okay.
Go, library, kids, that's where they go.
Okay, yeah. That's a safe place.
Cleveland Heights got rid of it because they feel like they're putting a threat on the school, but you're really not. It's protecting the community.
Well, there's always a way of getting something done. It might just take some effort in terms of finding out what that way is.
Yeah, but if you, Canterbury.
Okay.
Since there's no SRO, from 7 to Canterbury, you think you can protect somebody?
From where to Canterbury?
Canterbury, 7.
Severance.
The police, where the police.
Okay, right. City Hall, yeah.
You think they would get there fast enough? What if it's an active shooter? Somebody right here that's an SRO can get there faster than a person at City Hall.
I hear you.
When you at the school.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Well, I mean, that goes into a strategy that is further detailed beyond my awareness in terms of like the methodology of policing specifically in the municipality and where stations are set up, because I know the City Hall, there are the firehouses and different points. What I've shared actually recently with kinfolk is an idea of reintroducing the notion of the foot patrol and having partners that just like focus on the main.
I've never seen no officer walking.
I know. Well, it would be like basically like maybe the bicycle patrol.
BPO, basic patrol officer.
Okay, but yeah, I don't know how old school that is, because back in the day that be. But the thing is this: calling it like the Andy Griffith program, and just reminding people of like the old school kind of policing of like knowing people's names, caring about them, knowing who their parents are, knowing like all the elders in the community, and like, yo, shouldn't you be in school? And how's that homework assignment? You working on that project or whatever else? But when you have that type of relationship, then it's easier to kind of like to communicate, to police, to know what's going on, to be proactive, and subdue the serious threats in the community. But in that methodology, it's a matter of looking at focal points of interaction, like here on Coventry, up on Lee Road, up at a little bit on Lee and Mayfield, and then maybe around Taylor Road, and additionally, but.
What is it? Not Lee and Mayfield.
Fairmount and Cedar too.
Superior Mayfield, you be the dumbest motherfucker.
Superior Mayfield.
Yeah, you gotta be the dumbest motherfucker.
I hear you. Yeah. Well, I'm aware of that. I've been told, just like up on here, up on Superior, I've been told about the rate of crime in that, particularly violent crime and crimes utilizing weapons.
Yeah, but
so
they be posted right there.
Okay.
It's a sign that says do not trespass. Right there next to the car lot.
Okay.
Across the street from Walgreens.
Okay,
You
yeah.
can't touch. Nobody allowed to be on that property.
Like,
They see you on there, you're in big trouble.
I hear you.
Big trouble.
Well, I don't get caught up in like the territoriality, because I already know. I mean, I can tell you. I just know
it's a federal.
A federal.
That is the government property right there.
I hear you.
That's the government property. You cannot.
Okay. Like I said, I don't get caught up in the territoriality, because I mean, that's a non-ending game. But and I'll share this other thing with you, just because I'm actually, it's beneficial. You're a police officer, so I've shared this with many kinfolk. I've actually shared this with other police officers. You're part of the CHPD, or no, a different municipality. Okay, well I'll just share with this for your information.
I'm from Cleveland Heights too.
What's that?
I'm from Cleveland Heights.
You're from Cleveland Heights. Okay, you went to Heights? No.
All my siblings went to Heights.
Okay, cool. So, anyways, whatever the point is, but regardless of those circumstances, my point for the moment is just to share this with you to see what you think about it. But what I am aware of is that here in Coventry, at this moment and for a number of years, like I'm aware of a considerable amount of trafficking going on right here in the Heights, and particularly right here in Coventry, and particularly child trafficking. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing the evidence of it. I'm seeing it like in front of my face, and it's very difficult to address and call out. And so when I talk with police officers about how police officers are trained, I talk with CHPD on a number of occasions about what the protocols are, what the training is, what to look out for, and additionally, and the brethren who I talked with said that it's not covered a lot within the academy. It's not like one of the priority things that's addressed, and so that's understandable. There's a lot of things to learn about, but at the same time, I just think about how like entrenched in the culture it is, and how even like within the higher ups are involved in committing those crimes, and so it can be difficult to call it out because in doing that, there's still the consequences accordingly. So meanwhile, I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. First of all, like if you see a young brother with a young sister, and she's like exposing all types of herself, and they're just standing there, and maybe he might walk away for a minute, and so she's just standing there by herself for a while. They're not shopping, they're not doing nothing. She's just standing there. They're not going to the club. It's the middle of the day. There's like, okay, you know what? That don't look on the up and up. That looks a little bit suspect. Now I've seen that. It's not an everyday thing, but it's a normal kind of thing to see. Now that's one situation. So I don't know how obvious that is. I don't know if it's the same situation as somebody walking with the knife and everything else. But when I see that, I'm like, okay, I see what's going on here, and I can only do so much on myself. But that's that. Now that's not my point. My point is this: I've seen the same situation with a child, and this is the way it works. And I'm showing you. And again, I can't call it out because there's all kinds of defenses, and I start to get accused and occasionally. But right here, right in that spot right there, what happens is this: an adult comes in. Now it might be a middle-aged adult, maybe 30, 40, often a woman, who comes in with a child. The child might be 4 or 5 years old, maybe a little bit older, 7 or 8. Then they leave the child right there to sit by the child's self, and then they go off. And then they go off for a while, and the child is just there by the child's self, sitting there. Sometimes the child might have something to do with a device or whatever, and sometimes just sitting there, doing nothing. What's that? I hear you. I know, but that's what I'm saying. So, but now the way I'm saying, because I've done some research into pedophilia and how things work, how oftentimes the furthest perpetrators of pedophilia are family members, parents, and additionally selling their own children out. I've been told about things in rural places of Ohio. I've been told about like houses being found just in Ohio in recent years of raids being done. So what we know is going on is under the table and everything else. But the way it works here that I see is that they leave the child out there, and then an adult comes out and says, "Oh, what you doing? Da 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 da," and then gets an interest in the child or whatever else. And then it might not happen at that moment. They may go say like, "Oh, you should da 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 da," but they make their arrangements at that moment, and then go off to another site to actually do some type of transaction or whatever else like that. But that scene that's being observed right there is the shopping of the child, and kind of like seeing, like putting the child on the market. And again, I've seen it very often, and it becomes too obvious about what's happening. But at the same time, it's difficult to call it out because somebody say, "Oh, that's my daughter, that's my son, da 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 da." But I've seen it also when it's a teenager who's bringing the child in, and it can't be the teenager's child because the teenager might be 16 or 17. Often, again, a woman, a girl, and she's bringing like a 6-year-old there. So maybe a younger sister or otherwise. And there are families that go here. There are parents here who come here as well. So it's hidden within those things. But at the same time, when I see that, it's very challenging because in my heart, again, I can see the surface, but then I also know the spirit, and I can see what is the most likely happening, and it's difficult for me to know how to respond and address that accordingly. So, anyways, I just share that with you because you're a man of the force. You're involved in it. You see things yourself. You know about things yourself, and so part of what you're talking about having an SRO, and additionally, is having a culture of trust and a culture of knowledge and a culture of relationship where you, because here's the thing, it might be difficult for an adult to see because adults are caught up in their own BS and they're too busy trying to hide about what they're doing to call anybody else out. So adults are hiding about what's actually happening. However, the children see it and the children know what's happening. If you ask the elementary school children about other kids being shopped and everything, if they trust you, they let you know very quickly and easily. Oh yeah, that's that over there. Oh, that's that over there. Oh, you think that's something? You should try that spot over there. They know because they're not caught up. They're not worried about their fronts and everything else like that. So my point is that as an SRO, and additionally, it's a matter of cultivating that relationship and cultivating that trust within the community, where you can start having that conversation, and the children can confide in that adult, the SRO, and additionally, and be like, yo, you should check out that person, or you see that kid over there, yo, you need to talk to them. Don't take no for an answer either. It's serious. It's hectic right now. But that only happens when there's trust, when there's that relationship, when they see you on a daily basis and they see what you're about. They read you. They read your energy. They get beyond the surface level and everything else like that, and be like, okay, no, yo, we can trust that person. Because you know what happens because you know how the streets are. You know there's nasty cats who are doing nasty things and don't give a fuck accordingly. So children know that, and children have to be mindful of that, because if they start to talk about things, then they're subjecting themselves to the consequences accordingly, one way or another. So cats who get that trust, they have to be serious in terms of earning that trust. So that's some things in consideration.
I have to cut the conversation short.
All right, yeah, brother.
I have to get going.
All right, I appreciate you stopping by, man.
No problem.
So some thoughts, some peace and blessings to you.
Yo, we way into this and now it's in Juma, so I gotta be mindful of this and wrap up, because this is way longer than what's intended. But here it is. I'm going to finish this. I'm not going to be in a hurry, in order to do prayer, even though I'm late. So this is what it is. This is Juma right here. So and I've learned about that as well. This is my Juma. So I was just talking about black power, white imperialism. Don't get caught up in the binaries. Hate is hate, lies are lies, violence is violence, game is game, and don't get fooled by solidarities just based on color, because cats is going at cats, particularly at this moment. White against white, black against black, and additionally. So it takes further honesty, further depth, further knowledge about self, about discipline, about what's right, what's wrong, what's healthy, and who's doing it, in order to cultivate genuine, enduring solidarity, allegiance, allyship, or whatever names we give to that. So that's the consideration at this moment. That's numero dos. We got a few further on this list. So that being said, and for those who have the inclination of like studying the game and like knowing what's going on in the world, again, just like observe the face of European being put on imperialism, not Europeans being the exclusive imperialists or whatever else, just the face. And then again, the black power being the motor that's fueling it, eating against itself, eating against, feeding off angst, and being super powered in feeding off that angst, and being provided with very, very narrow avenues of how to practice that angst, still being enslaved and subjugated wrongfully, and additionally, but being comparatively indifferent because just settling for the trappings. I don't care about being a slave as long as I got go, and this and this. So again, egotism, and additionally, and that's not exclusive to any color or whatever else. But the game is evolving, and we can find the same thing within China and India and the Middle East and native community as well. So wada. Anyways, and that's imperialism. So I'm gonna get off that. Now we're gonna get into some original thing. This is I'm reading from this verbatim because it's somewhat of a prose thing. But anyways, here it is, and this is actually the substance. Like, this is the crux of what I'm supposed to be sharing at this moment. What precipitates this joint. It seems like so much further than an hour, actually. I got a half button at the top, so I'm trying to be as proper as proper. It's going to be what it is as the chains go on. The saws. Anyways, this is just a joint that's recently written. It goes like this. I have seen and lived within the fear of my enemies, where he is quiet, she is quiet. His eyes are open, her mouth is closed. I have lived within the dreaming, where his nightmares are coming true. He is paralyzed, she is paralyzed, as they see the consequences and the connections unfold. The tears, the screams, the rigid, enigmatic inevitability flowing. I see him, a little boy striving to be his best, do his best. I see her, a little girl, striving to be her best, do her best. Terribly afraid and timidly smiling. I have seen and lived the psychosis, where the nightmares are coming true. Everything is fake. Everything is a delusion. Everything is a grift. Everyone a lie. And nothing can be trusted since the very beginning. Torture looms. Abduction looms. Treachery and betrayal looms. And my enemies are paralyzed with timid smiles, looking into my eyes, into my heart, into my soul, and seeing again some semblance of truth, some semblance of trust, some encouragement to believe. To be vulnerable again within the psychosis. But my allies arrive, wearied and vengeful, and sharpened teeth, to take advantage, take a bite, take away from my enemies, my allies, myself. The path continues, within and beyond the dreaming, within and before the beginning, until and without the final day. Eternity. A mouse from the shadows, a foot upon the floor, a window during the night, a moon above the sky, the soleil beyond the vision, a light beyond the words, I, and all that be. Peace brings peace. Truth brings truth. Love brings love. The garden brings the garden. So that's that joint. Now we get into something, and this is probably the most heavy of what I have to share for today. Actually, that one I just did is somewhat heavy, to be honest about it. It's light. It's not pure light. It is pure light, but it's also cloudy. But it's heavy. But it's light. But it's heavy. But it's light. Now, button done. We go into the heavy. This is earthly heavy. This is a little bit difficult. But this is what the brethren was saying just an hour ago. And I'm just basically going to just go through the notes as briefly as possible, as succinct as possible, because again, it can be involved. It is involved, and it can be elongated. So right now, we're just going to do this. I'm basically just going to be reading from the notes. Explanation of the imperial assault of LGBTQ. So the first thing is to recognize that LGBTQ is a religion. Like any other religion, it's a religion. personal freedom is a religion. It's a specific belief, a religious doctrine, proclamation, and system of belief. So universalism is a religion. It's a specific system of belief. And so things that claim to be purely objective and objective truth and everything else like that, science, all that, it's a religion. It's a system of belief. So everything is. And something that says it's not is, just by saying it's not. Something that says it's everything is a religion. When I say I'm the earth, that's a religion. I can claim all the religions of the earth. That's a religion in and of itself. So there's no escaping that notion of the system of belief. So it's appropriate to recognize that, because one of the next steps that people do after making that proclamation is then imposing it upon others. It's not a religion, and now everybody has to do it. Because it's not a religion. You don't have to worry about it, but you still have to do it. Ha ha. And that's when it becomes oppressive. That's when it becomes tyranny. That's when it becomes wrongful. Particularly, it could be wrongful before that, but particularly when it's imposed upon others, wrongful. And that is the nature, but part of the nature of LGBTQ at this point, because personal liberty is a religiosity. Some people don't want personal liberty. Some people don't want personal freedom, particularly as the absolute priority. It's a very individualistic system of belief. It's a very isolating system of belief in actuality. It lends itself to institutionalization and further. Some people don't want that. Many people, maybe even the vast majority of people, don't want that. Family. When we look at the tradition within China and Wulun, the 5 relations, and particularly filial piety. In filial piety, people are obligated. There's no personal liberty. You can do what you not just what your parents say, but what's part of the tradition within the family, the heritage, the ancestors, and additionally, obligation, necessity. That's not personal liberty, and it's not necessarily an either or, but the notion of championing and prioritizing personal liberty impedes upon that practice and those protocols of filial piety. So it's a religiosity that's imposing itself upon another religiosity, and it's beneficial to recognize that, because many people of the world even worship of God, and additionally, in worshiping God, that's not personal liberty. It's not a matter of doing what I want to do. It's a matter of I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And people might all right, I'm getting to commentary, but people might translate the notion of abiding by the will of God as what people prefer to do. Well, that's your choice. But no, this is what it is. And I don't believe in that notion of personal choice or priority or otherwise. So it's beneficial to recognize personal freedom as a religiosity, and when it is imposed upon as the necessary religiosity, then it is imperialism, it is wrongful, it is oppressive, it's a problem, it's problematic. So that is what we observe with LGBTQ at this moment, with all the emphasis of individualism, and additionally, it's imposing itself accordingly as a religious, as a system of belief and a religiosity. When the flags are being flown on municipalities, municipal city halls, and additionally, that's imposition, and it's attaching itself to the established imperialism, well known and acknowledged imperialism of the United States. When the rainbow flags are flying right next to the stars and stripes, or the stars and bars, or however what name we call it, that's imperialism. LGBTQ is attaching itself to the imperialism of the United States. So LGBTQ is officially imperialistic, and that's part of the success of the LGBTQ policy over particularly the preceding generations. So in doing that, in flying the LGBTQ flag over municipalities, over communities, regardless of what the community's beliefs are, what the individuals and families' beliefs are, that's imposition. That's imposition of a system of belief. It's imposition of a religiosity. So that's facts. That's facts. And I say that with love. It's not with hate. That's just facts. And the thing is that people have difficulty, people at convention who disagree with LGBTQ have difficulty saying that because people again are caught up in doing so much crime and dirt and grime against each other that LGBTQ knows too much about that and just calls people out. So instead, it's just a matter of just acquiescing to that imposition. So, but it's again, LGBTQ is imperialism. So that's that at the moment. Now we're going to get into another rationale, another explanation, another observation, and just again, this one may be further difficult to recognize this as facts, but this is just a scenario. Now, if we look at a transgendered man, a man who is born with a penis, a boy who is born with a penis becomes a man, and then goes through the process of being quote unquote transgendered to have a vagina. Supposedly, I don't know what the details of that are, but supposedly that's what the scenario is, and I'm not trying to learn further about that. So anyways, and I don't mean to be dismissive or derogatory, disrespectful, but I disagree with it. That's not hate. I don't have to find out about everything I disagree about. I can see enough about it and be like, yeah, nah. And so that's one of those things, yeah, nah. But anyways, I'm informed about that. Some people, some beautiful brethren are in that experience. I love the brethren and want to support the well-being, but at the same time, I don't have to know the details. So anyways, in that scenario where presumably a man who has a penis who goes through the process of transgendered and then has a vagina, and so has the appearance of being a woman, and I do see at this moment a number of brethren who are very skillful in conveying the appearance of a woman, very convincing in many respects. It's been around for generations, been around for a long time, since ancient days, but particularly amidst the cosmetic alterations of the anatomy in recent generations, it's almost sublime at this point, and particularly younger and younger. So, all that being said, I'm going to articulate some basic scenarios concerning that phenomena and how that phenomena, again, is actually an imposition upon others. It imposes a religiosity upon others. It unduly imposes a religiosity upon others. So here's how it is. Now, when a man goes through that process of transgendered, and with a basic understanding of what that is, there are a few different options that such a man has, and I don't mean to be disrespectful in terms of referring to such an individual as a man. I understand people have the identity politics and everything else like that. Again, that's religiosity. That's a difference of a belief. So, and you can talk about what people would self-identify as. That's a system of belief as well. So, and anyways, but all that again, just at this very moment, it's a tangent. It's a diversion. So we're going to focus on the point on the matter at hand. So there are a number of options that such a man has. One, the man could just be celibate for the rest of life and have no sex with anybody, be monastic, and there it is. So that's one option. Another option is to have sex only with another man who is also LGBTQ, whether that means gay or transgendered or whatever else, but somebody who is in that same system of belief, knows about the person, the other man's circumstances, history, and additionally, and accepts that and deals with it accordingly. So that's another option. Another option is to have sex with an LGBTQ woman. And I'm aware of there being a number of different scenarios and rationales and reasons and preferences about what people do with their sexual behavior. Why a man would go through the process of being transgendered in order to just have sex with women anyways, to be considered a lesbian. The logic of that seems somewhat contradictory, but again, people have their different things. So this is not a matter of judging that or questioning that, but just looking at that as an option. So that's another option of a transgendered man having sex with another woman, or a transgendered woman, or whatever else. But that's the element. But still, somebody within the religiosity and system of belief shares the same system of belief or compatible system of belief of LGBTQ religiosity, and there it is. Now, another scenario is the transgendered man having sex with a straight man, with that straight man knowing, but particularly the scenario where the straight man is not knowing that the transgendered man with a vagina was initially born as a man. So, in that respect, the transgendered man is actually imposing the religiosity upon the straight man who is unknowing to that religiosity. And that is an actuality. So it's similar. It can be compared to a religious practitioner like a Catholic. Jewish brethren don't proselytize regularly or ordinarily, but a Muslim, a Buddhist, or otherwise, luring somebody into the practice, proselytizing, and additionally. So the mechanics are different, but that's the actuality. A transgendered man. Endeavoring to have sex with a straight man is imposing the religiosity. It's proselytizing, and in the deception of not divulging up front that characteristic and history, in that deception, there's an imposition of that religiosity. So, for those who have an interest of just being intellectually honest, which is very seemingly, supposedly championed, and I don't mean to sound condescending or sarcastic, whatever, but seemingly, I mean, that seems to be significantly championed in the LGBTQ culture, intellectualism, and perhaps also intellectual honesty. So that's just the actuality. But here's the further thing. Regardless of what the scenario is, any of those four scenarios, when a transgendered man, or even not, it doesn't necessarily have to be a transgendered man, but when a man appears in public and conveys the appearance of being a woman, to the point of being convincing towards straight men who are interested in being in relationship with a straight woman, when a transgendered man portrays that illusion of being a natural woman, let's put it like that, portrays the illusion of being a natural woman, that is an imposition of religiosity on the straight men, all straight men that transgendered man encounters in public, regardless of what the actual result is of the interaction or otherwise, because much of the primordial nature of straight men is to be proactive. If we just look again at the experience of the natural world, even within the imperial world, but particularly within the natural world, looking at animals, like very often it is the males of the species that is proactive in pursuing the female. So a female presents herself, and the male responds with the interest of procreation. So when a human woman presents herself, the natural reaction, the primordial reaction, the involuntary reaction of a man is to want to procreate with that woman. So when a man portrays himself in the illusion or as an illusion of a natural woman, that transgendered man is engaging in an act of deceit towards every man who observes, who sees that transgendered man, regardless of what the interaction is or otherwise. So that is an imposition of religiosity. And that imposition becomes increasingly egregious when the intention of, or when the intention and the action of the transgendered man is increasingly seductive. If the transgendered man dresses in a way that is intended to gain attraction from a man, or even just to gain attraction, period, it's going to get attraction from a man. If the appearance of the transgendered man is very convincing and very has all the aesthetics of a natural woman that's young, attractive, and additionally, when the transgendered man presents himself in such a way, the harm and the aggression and the wrong that the transgendered man poses and commits against a straight man is increasingly harmful, worse. And it's beneficial to recognize that. It's not a harmless thing. It's not an individual. It's not just an individualistic expression of this thing. There's an intentionality, because there's so much, the society is hypersexualized. There's so much manipulation, so much wrongful doing across the board, straight, LGBTQ or otherwise. That's not excusing what straight kinfolk do for generations and generations. But just because straight kinfolk are doing it, men and women, being equal opportunity judges here, judgments, just because straight kinfolk have done that for generations and generations doesn't make it okay for LGBTQ kinfolk to do it. And that is much of the guise in terms of the political ascension, and additionally amongst LGBTQ kinfolk, is calling out the aggressions, the atrocities that others are committing, and then positing the LGBTQ transgressions as somewhat further benign, and therefore further acceptable and further protected in the notions of individualism. So it's beneficial to recognize that even within that premise of individualism and that premise of individual freedom, what we look at when we look at the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, when we look at the Bill of Rights with the U.S. Constitution, which I don't promote, but people are built on that, built from that. When we look at that, it's not just the freedom of religion, it's freedom from religion, freedom from being imposed upon in such a way. If it's a star and crescent that's flying next to the stars and bars, if it's the Magin David, if it's the swastika, the genuine, authentic swastika from India, whether it's the Buddhist wheel, whether it's even the medicine wheel, whatever the religiosity may be, when it's flying next to or as the governing authority amongst individuals who do not share that in those beliefs, that's imposition of spirit, of religiosity. That's violating freedom from religion. So when the rainbow flag is flown, that's a violation of freedom from religion. And when kinfolk present themselves, when a transgender man or a LGBTQ man presents himself as a woman, and regardless of knowing or not knowing, but when presents himself as a woman, that is an imposition of religiosity on straight men. And so that's a violation of freedom from religion. And so that's also a violation against the basic premise of the LGBTQ as well, in terms of individualism and personal liberties, personal freedom. So, as I mentioned before, there's been somewhat of a presumption and an effective argument of carte blanche kind of behavior amongst LGBTQ because of the context of the further atrocities that Western civilization has committed. And so as long as LGBTQ is able to call out and create enough fervor about those atrocities, and then advocate for the promotion of LGBTQ norms, I phrased that somewhat inaccurately or somewhat awkwardly. That's been much of the methodology, but it's erroneous because one, it calls out attention and actually kicks up a lot of dust in certain respects, and then in that unrest, in that chaos is a little bit of a strong word, but amidst that dissonance, then this methodic advocacy of building a platform of normalcy for LGBTQ culture, lifestyle, and behavior is step by step established over the past few generations. But again, the argument, the logic of that is erroneous because it's like advocating a mundane atrocity or a mundane harm um, amidst the conditions of a significant harm. So stir up the racial pot, stir up classism or human rights abuses, and then attach the advocacy of individualism and LGBTQ as the conventional compromise to continue the status quo. So that's one of the notions of the foundational erroneousness of the methodology. The other thing also is that it's successful for the preceding generations, for the past few generations, is rather extremely successful. We see the evidence of it again, as I said before, flying flags in the municipalities, establishments within the higher powers of academia, and additionally, norms within established in legislation in the imperial constructs. Fast forwarded hyper speed beyond the needs and emergencies of other communities, and it's not a matter of like bitter grapes or whatever about jealousy or whatever, but it's just recognizing that it's very successful, and in being successful, it becomes part of the imperialist construct and the imperialist machinery. So LGBTQ is imperialistic, legit, full on. So that is a direct contradiction against the premise of victimization that LGBTQ initially builds itself upon. Oh, we're getting all this oppression, we're experiencing all this affliction, we need support, da 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 da. Now that's not the case, because it's part of the imperialistic structure. So there's the necessity of reconciliation in that respect. One other thing to mention at this point is just in this process there is the deterioration of the construct, the institution, the experience of traditional family. Individualism is significant within that. The whole notion of the republic, democracy, the republic as a contrary to monarchy and the governance through family constructs. Now, I'm not saying monarchy is like the utopia or whatever, but in terms of the effect on the experience of traditional family, there is an adverse effect. So that's been going on for centuries at this point. It's kind of culminating at the moment, and there's a certain amount of denouement and the emergence of new and evolved paradigms that actually is rejuvenating and reemergent of traditional families, clans, and additionally. So, but LGBTQ is antithetical towards traditional family, and much of the legislative missions or objectives and actualities that LGBTQ organizes in recent generations is effectively involves the methodic and legislative deterioration of the traditional family by conferring the same status and additionally towards individuals who are not traditional family members. So anyways, this might seem like a lot of vitriol or whatever, but it's just a communication of the imposition, the oppression that is committed by LGBTQ through recent generations to this day, and how there are very few voices historically up to this moment that are strengthened, encouraged, equipped, inclined towards addressing these atrocities. When we look at what LGBTQ is attaching itself to with the United States and further the imperialistic system, there are atrocities. When attention is put to things that are not important or not essential to the well-being of our aggregate world, natural world, civilizational world, and instead looked at things that are just like bullshit, that's atrocity, because people are dying, people are starving, people are sick and in need of healing, and that's not getting addressed because attention is being placed towards things about what people want to do, and additionally, and the things that people want to do, and putting so much importance is its own sickness, and it requires attention and empathy and compassion. But at the same time, there's there are further priorities, and there's further rightfulness in terms of how those priorities are addressed. And LGBTQ is takes a lot of attention away from, and resources and materiality and work and service away from the priorities that life is experiencing on this earth. So this soliloquy being included within that. So again, that effect particularly has detrimental effects towards traditional family. One thing also to recognize is that LGBTQ is also is an unsustainable religiosity in and of itself. It requires, in order to perpetuate itself as a phenomenon, like with traditional families procreate, have children continue on in that legacy. LGBTQ requires recruitment of youth, and so that's we can see that now, even where I sit in the Heights. There are LGBT swastikas that are painted in front of the high school, and in parks and on benches. And additionally, that's imposition, that's religiosity, that's oppression, that's a violation against freedom from religion, and it's specifically targeted towards youth, underage, not citizens, under the age of 18, and accordingly. So, and as the law, it's in front of everybody. Everybody who drives over those rainbow crosswalks to the school, to the parks, and additionally, it's bowing down to the LGBT swastikas, and that's a very strong word. And I first am mindful of honoring the swastika, but that's what it is at this point. So again, it's imperialism, LGBTQ imperialism. No better or worse than any other type of imperialism, but it seems to be less addressed and less acknowledged. So my point for sharing this particularly is to have the discussion. Let's talk about it. You disagree? Yo, let's talk respectfully. Let's talk factually. So there's that. Now, amidst my accusations, my observations that I share, here's a consideration for LGBT kinfolk. The consideration of the traditional rainbow polygamy flag. How about that? So, in that respect of having the LGBTQ rainbow flags, what is LGBTQ's community's stance concerning the right for a man to have multiple wives? Now, I genuinely believe in that purpose. I share the belief, and this is coming from tradition of the earth. I share the belief that it's optimal for a man to have only one wife, to devote his attention and energy and everything to a one wife, and build children with wife accordingly. But at the same time, there is permissibility and sometimes favorability for a man to have multiple wives. So, the consideration is, how does the LGBTQ consider that to fit within the experience and the agenda of the LGBTQ community and culture? Is this something that LGBTQ readily supports and is willing to change legislation to enable that? Because in many places, I think particularly in Canada, a man having multiple wives is against the law, even though it's the law for thousands of years, much throughout world civilization. Judaism, Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, essentially, as much as I know, Buddhism, and further, Taoism, and further. So, for it to be against the law of a secular society seems contradictory. When adultery is not against the law, having sex with as many women as a man wants to is not against the law. It's permissible. Might not be necessarily sustainable, but it's permissible according to the law, I guess, as long as he has enough money or whatever else. But if he wants to marry the women, that's against the law. That seems contradictory. So does LGBTQ take up that cause and support a man having multiple wives? Now, for those in the LGBTQ culture, there might be the ready response, well, maybe if it's somewhat honest, yes, the LGBTQ supports that, but at the same time, there can likely be expected an immediate, in addition to that, there's also support for polygyny, the right for a woman to have multiple husbands. So I'm not going to get into that argument, but there's disagreement with that. That's something that's not within the tradition of the earth in the same way as polygamy. It does exist. There's a history of that. There are societies that are built upon that. I'm not hating on that, but it's a different phenomenon, and that conversation could be had. But for those who are going to be emphatic about that conversation, it seems as though the intentionality is just again causing diversion from the actuality of what I just communicated in terms of polygamy. So, and in that respect, we can go further in terms of prostitution. Does LGBTQ take into consideration prostitution? Because much of the premise of LGBTQ again is on individualism, individual choice and prerogative, and so and again that concept and the experience of mutual consent is very significant within LGBTQ. So. And particularly because it's intrinsically and significantly involved in the notion of personal liberty, the manifestation of one's will. So if that's the case, then presumably, logically, reasonably, prostitution should be something that is at the very least permissible amongst LGBTQ, if not promoted as a right. If two adults want to have this medium of this exchange, quid pro quo, why go through all the pretenses and just say, hey, here it is, exchange? If it's just a matter of individuals making a decision, why is there not a P within the LGBTQ? I don't know what I is, and I'm less interested because, like I said, there's only so much, and it just keeps on going. But at some point it has to stop, or at some point it does stop, and at some point it has stopped. Anyways, but amidst that, where's the P? Either for polygamy, polygyny, prostitution, or here's another one, and I'm not advocating this at all, obviously, but still, again, pedophilia, because from what I've seen in the LGBTQ conversations in recent years, there seems to be a significant amount of actual promotion and support for pedophilia, and proclaim, again, a notion of promoting the rights, quote unquote, of individuals, and where do those rights begin? Again, when looking at the rainbow swastikas at the schoolhouse, there are 14-year-olds, there are 13-year-olds that are going to school, crossing that, going to the park. There are 7-year-olds and 8-year-olds that are crossing that crosswalk and walking on those rainbows, and so that's immediate advertising, promotion to children about sexual behavior, because that's what the rainbow flags signify. It's not a matter of personal choice. It's not a matter of love. It's a matter of sex, and so it's planted right where children play. So that's part of the pedophilia culture. And I've talked about this before, and I'm trying to get not too hyped about this at the moment, but recognizing that pedophilia culture is predatory and harmful, and very difficult to call out because it hides within the transgressions of society, within the corruptions within society. Society is so corrupt in terms of hypersexuality, objectifying each other, and additionally through many different ways, particularly through sex. So just for that kind of corruption and predatoriness to be applied to children is just a very small step from what's already happening. So it seems as though LGBTQ, and from what I've heard from within the LGBTQ community, there seems to be a very strong essential support for pedophilia, or at least redefining what mutual consent is, and conferring that ability of mutual consent to 13-year-olds, to 12-year-olds, and again, that's bar mitzvah, that's bar mitzvah age, but even to 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, and otherwise. Many 7-year-olds or 8-year-olds are already sexually active, and I can testify from personal experience about that as well. So we know that's already happening. So then there's a room for that logic intellectually, if not virtuously, to talk about what mutual consent is. But again, it's all harm, it's all pain. 7-year-olds are not prepared generally to have children, to procreate, and so the necessity of sex is not applicable to a 7-year-old, generally speaking. Having a conversation about whether a 7-year-old can have mutual consent for sexual activity, just even thinking about that signifies how sick and hurt and pained society is. So I've seen that conversation within the LGBTQ. It's not. I don't see a P still yet in the LGBTQ acronym, but that does connect with, again, the individualism, but not just that. The other component I mentioned in terms of LGBTQ needing to feed from the energy of youth to sustain itself, and so that's part of the recruitment. Why we see the rainbows, and additionally the rainbow swastikas in the parks, on the benches, at the crosswalks, on the flags, poles, and additionally, so imposition of religiosity at the very least, and causing considerable harm, and not being properly addressed because everybody else is just caught up in doing bad things. So I'm no better. I'm a piece of shit. I say it all the time. I walk with God. I'm no better or worse than anybody else. I'm charged to call this out because I can, and so I do. There it is. We're 2 hours into this joint, way past Juma. Got to go. All right. So, just to sum up this part of it, there's the consideration of whether LGBTQ is taking on the cause of polygamy flags, and strategizing and implementing policies, issues, laws, advocacy, normalization, acceptance, and practice of polygamy, because that seems to fit exactly within the rationale of LGBTQ. The women are mutually consenting to a polygamous marriage, and additionally, so there's that consideration. So there's some notion about judgment. Whatever judgment LGBTQ has towards polygamy, how the rationale of that judgment is applied towards how LGBTQ applies that rationale of judgment towards itself as well. That's a consideration. If presumably, I mean, just presumably, LGBTQ doesn't, as a general culture and community, doesn't support polygamy. That's the presumption. And so if that's the case, what is it that LGBTQ finds at fault with polygamy? And how does that differentiate from what LGBTQ does itself? So that's pretty much the gist of what we talk. Oh no! All right, so so what we end up is with this. At the end of the day, somehow I get into this spiel again, but when we talk about rationalizations, about individualism, about relationship, and additionally, one, there's a lot of necessity of just sobering up, getting beyond our own pretenses, our own BS, our own echo chambers, and just being honest, and like it's not letting go of like the grift, letting go of the game, and like trying to get over on cats, and just like have an honest conversation, y'all. Come on, just be honest. Let's just get the facts out there, and in that, when we look for and find that premise of cooperation, like whatever our differences are, and additionally, what we can find is the Panchasilas, and that's that. I mean, again, this is facts for thousands of years. Facts. Peace, sharing, chastity, honesty, and sobriety. That's a foundation of harmonious behavior amidst all our differences, belief systems, and everything else like that. That's ethics. I'm not claiming that as a universal. It is its own religiosity, but it is amongst all the religiosities, religiosity that is shared amidst the religiosities. So there's an increasing amount of harmony that exists within that. Everybody ain't got to do it, but it's beneficial to recognize the benefit that comes with it, so that people can be further and dutiful in investing in it and reaping from the benefits that emerge from that. So that being said, that concludes this joint. This section of the joint. We're almost concluded now, maybe about 15-20 minutes, maybe. I'm going to recite, God willing, 2 further joints in terms of original prose. Here we go, dos. Do we need some space? Give us some space. I'm not going to pan what I'm looking at the moment, because we got blue sky, we got colors, green, orange, red, yellow, brown. We got blue, and white, puffy. What? I have yet to do something. Come on, I'm way off my game this week. So I gotta be mindful of that. But I'm not doing that because they're kinfolk in front of me. So I'm not going to be putting my kinfolks on blast at this moment. So there's that. Now, I'm inclined to give a shout out, a big up to a well-known hip hop brethren of blessed memory, but I'm going to be disciplined in how much I lend myself to the suggestion of the streets. All love. That's just actuality. The track that's being played right now is decent. I used to bump it when I was younger. I don't bump it these days because the lyrics is a little bit at ya. But there are additional tracks from the same kinfolk, from the same brethren that I do continue to play. So anyways, that's that. Here we go. Space. Here it is. Original. When we are still, our pains are pronounced. When we are stayed, our well is procured. When clamor meets our calm, who is sovereign? What prevails? So now we get into the wrap-up joint. So this is an address. These are some ideas, some solutions, particularly for environmentalists, kinfolk, who are part of convention, even within the hierarchy of conventional, middle class, middle class, upper middle class, upper class, kinfolk who have some inclination towards nature and restoration of natural harmony and well-being, even the rivers and trees and natural life. So here's some further solutions, because I'm asked about this. I get insight about this, and so I'm asked occasionally about this, about solutions. I've shared many solutions already, and so this is some recent joints that I'm sharing and making privy to the peoples. So now this is going to begin with some candid type stuff. But one actuality is this: first of all, to recognize that the status quo, like the standard operandus modi, what that is, the modus operandi, standard method of operations, ain't doing it. It's not doing it. And like the people who have the knowledge have acquired that knowledge through the atrocities, and so the solutions ain't going to come from that knowledge either. There's a very sophisticated, tremendous knowledge about the affliction, but in terms of solution, it ain't coming from people who are trained and learned and have been acculturated and conditioned for many years to commit the atrocities. Because even when kinfolk have an intellectual, cognitive awareness of what the solutions are, in terms of a practical application of those solutions, because they're caught up in the system. That's how they got it. That's how they got the knowledge. So in terms of genuinely doing something that's different from what's going on, it ain't happening. It's imperialism. The knowledge is gained through imperialism. Imperialism is out to conquest. And so the solutions ain't going to come from imperialism. It's not going to come. Natural world, the solutions are going to come from a knowledge of the natural world, but the natural world doesn't care. The natural world is the law of the jungle. What's going on today? And so the natural world gives an insight about the healing and everything that exists within the natural world, but the natural world is less inclined or caring about what happens in the imperial world. The natural world just does what it can at that moment. So there's a medium, and again, am I promoting piety? I have to. That's what I am. That's what I do. I promote each one because there's benefit that comes with each one, but I'm just communicating what the limitations are, because there are a lot of presumptions that kinfolk seem to have about what the solutions are and how to gain the solutions, and it ain't coming from that. So you don't learn about peace by studying exclusively war and just expecting warfare to teach peace. So when it comes to natural healing and healing of nature, it's not coming through the knowledge of science. Yeah, it's serious. Anyways. So that's the first thing. So anyways, that being said, for those who are significantly entrenched or involved and I don't mean to sound condescending or derogatory or I'm not trying to do that. In order to like convey this kind of like some kind of like sing-songy thing, which I've been conditioned and oppressed towards being, because my delivery a number of years ago, before a serious affliction, was just kind of very calm, and I would be sarcastic, but I wasn't the sing-songy kind of way. But from the persecution that I experienced, I've cultivated this personality. Anyways, and I've been humorous or whatever with all my life. But anyways, in me being sing-songy at this moment, it might sound like I'm being insulting or dismissive or disrespectful. I don't intend that. But anyways, I got to continue on the factual here. So for kinfolk, dear beautiful loved ones, kinfolk who are in middle class, upper class, additionally, who generally want some type of solution, want some genuine improvement somehow. Here's a method, an additional method. First, to recognize that it's not just a matter of like a little adjustment. That's not going to do it. It's not going to do it. It's not going to do it. It's not going to do it. And I don't like talking about negativity and limiting possibilities, but it's beneficial just to wake up and be like, yo, like drinking diet soda ain't doing it. That's not what it is. Having the diet candy bar ain't going to be the solution to the healing. That's not what it is. Serious honesty. I try to be affirmative in my rhetoric, and additionally, but I'm just all right. So now we sober up a little bit. With that being said, so what is the methodology? What is the solution? Here's a consideration. Instead of trying to like just piecemeal or partially like address things, and that's it. What one can consider doing, what can endeavor to do, what one can do is this: find an anchor. Find an anchor in the natural world. Somebody, a humanoid, a human being, presumably, predominantly, who lives off the grid, thoroughly 100 off the grid, like native all the way, doesn't use any technology after or up to, utilizes only technology up to the age of electricity. How about that? So tools, weapons, housing, food, all that, clothing, all that is procured through technology that is established before the age of electricity, 100 and 200 years ago, thereabouts. So finding brethren like that, and then investing in brethren like that. What do they need? What can I provide for the brethren to do that? So it's building a relationship with the natural world through the relations that live increasingly within the natural world, and gleaning the healing, the insight, the balance, the harmony, the love, all that through the relationship with that kinfolk. But in that scenario, in these circumstances, again, obviously, and by and large, it's difficult for somebody who's entrenched in the imperialistic system to have a direct, ongoing, sustainable relationship with somebody who lives off the grid, because they don't have no phone, they don't have no celly, they ain't got no internet, they're not doing them things. So if you live off another continent, like how you make them interactions? So intermediaries. So we got the anchor, and then we got the intermediaries. And the intermediaries are those who are somewhat off the grid, quasi, to varying degrees, have a similar intention as the benevolent, inclined imperialist entrenched kinfolk do, but are further removed from the entrenchment within the imperialistic mechanisms, and do go off the grid, do interact with the brethren in the bush, in the natural environment, in the jungle, in the caves, and additionally, and can provide food, clothing, supplies, and additionally that are, again, pre-electric technology wise accordingly, so they can be that, they are that intermediary, that go-between. So the imperialists can interact with the quasi off-grid intermediary, because the quasi off-grid intermediary may have internet access occasionally, it might have a mobile phone on the regular, and there's that. So, but then one of the standards for consideration in this arrangement is what defines an intermediary quasi off the grid kinfolk. How about this? No technology, or only utilize this technology up to the smartphone. So that's the other gauge: electricity and then the smartphone. So the kinfolk who are quasi off grid, no smartphone, can connect with people who are on the grid, this and the other, but have this discipline accordingly. So and so it's a matter of subsidizing those kinfolk who are off the grid. Kinfolk off the grid can live independently, sustainably, intergenerationally, without help from imperialists. Imperialists are obstructionists. Imperialists are killing the water and doing all these other things that deteriorate the ability. So it's just a matter of just like stopping doing that. And the intermediate, providing direct, proactive investment in terms of materiality for the kinfolk who are living off the grid. So that's, and again, it's a self-promotion. Life is Tupac. Something like that. Anyways, that's interesting. Ida. So we continue on. So anyways, that's a solution for such inclined kinfolk who are entrenched within the mechanics of imperialism. One of the considerations in that scenario of the intermediaries is, again, the identification of ethics, holding the intermediaries accountable, such that the intermediaries are not exploitational towards the natural world or the imperial world. Again, Pontus Silas is very advisable, otherwise having some type of universally accepted protocols. And one of the things to consider with the kinfolk who are off the grid, the kinfolk can be of any kind of natural disposition, natural inclination, meaning it could be kinfolk who are living in Africa, it could be kinfolk who are living off the grid in Asia or Middle East or Europe or on this continent, in this hemisphere. It's the nature of healing. At some point, there's universality. However, that being said, people in the imperialistic world may find it and can find it beneficial to specifically and even exclusively or primarily invest in the kinfolk who are going off grid, who are doing it and from the natural environment that is indigenous to the imperialist kinfolk. So somebody who's of African ancestry, who's enveloped in the imperialist system, investing in another African being off the grid. A person of European ancestry who's enveloped in the imperialist mechanics, investing in another European kinfolk who's doing it, because that the immediacy of communication and the relationship and the benefits may be further readily evidenceable for such kinfolk. So, but it could be anybody, particularly for those who have an interest in multiculturalism and additionally. So, mixed folk and further. So anyways, that's another consideration. It's also beneficial for the intermediaries to have some knowledge about the nature, about the natural world that they are intermediaries for, the culture, the language, customs, and additionally. So again, sharing that with the imperialistic kinfolk, providing some reminders about roots and ancestry, giving some foundation, because again, these are the anchors, these are the anchorage. So there it is. Now that's the crux of the conclusion, but we got some additional ones as additional considerations. There's a story that goes with this. I'm going to give just a very brief abbreviated version of this story. Had Starburst recently, yesterday, for the first occasion in years. Cost way further than what I used to pay for Starburst growing up. Nature of economy and inflation. Looking at the ingredients, I'm vegan. So these days I actually consumed a portion of chicken in recent weeks for the first occasion, and I'm not going to go into that, but it happened, so I'm giving my confession at this moment as I make that proclamation of being vegan. I've even had dairy on other occasions in the recent weeks as well. So I'm just making my confession. It is what it is. I have to experience the consequences. There is bird flesh that is emerging itself within my fabric at this moment, and I'm affected by that. in a serious way. It's not just a matter of indigestion, but like the way the world manifests itself, the universe manifests itself around me. There is angst within me that originates from beyond me. So, yo, serious. Also, in terms of just looking at the physiology and like the esoteric nature of procreation and the other behavior of sodomy, if you look at where the destination reaches, I mean, a man going into a woman, and this is a little bit this is somewhat detailed, somewhat imagery kind of language, but a man going into a woman, the destination is it's an eternity. The womb of a woman is like, in many religions, is considered the most sacred thing in this universe, the most sacred material phenomena in this universe. The womb of a the womb of a woman, of a mother particularly. And so when a man is engaged in that interaction, that intercourse with a woman, that congress with a woman, that's the destination where he's going. Now, when a woman abuses her body, essentially, and we can talk about that, but and there's sterility or otherwise, then that the nature of the womb is altered, and that the nature of that fertility and infinity and even that sacredness is altered. And so that's part of the harm that's being experienced about that, because there's a lot of fear and pain and angst and anger and deprivation that precipitates such a decision for a woman to self-inflict herself. And I'm not putting that on a woman, but I'm just communicating the actuality. Now, recognizing at the same time, when there's the act of sodomy, a man going into a man, you can consider what the destination is of that. It's the bowels. It's sulfur. It's a vile. I won't say a vile because it's the digestive tract, but it's acidic. So again, when you look at the physiology, the physical nature of things as being like a manifestation of the universe, I just let that speak for itself as well. So there's the encouragement for people to invest people's selves in a way that is fruitful, in a way that is fertile, in a way that is healthy. Letting go of pleasure, because the process into extreme pain can be very pleasurable. So it's a matter of being sober beyond that experience of pleasure and to see the purpose within the action. So that imagery, and additionally, is a communication so that people can be further mindful of the actuality. Now, that being said, we go into the democracy of digestion. The democracy of digestion. So like I said, I had Starburst recently. I'm vegan. I read labels. Whenever I have processed food that I have for the first time, if it's something I'm not familiar with, if it's a brand or if it's a product that I'm not familiar with, I read the labels. Not have to, but that's just what I do. It's part of the culture. It's like picking up the box. I read the label. What is in it? And if it's something that I don't have as a vegan, don't have it. So that's what I do. Now, there are things that I've had processed food long ago when I'm youngster, and that I don't have any further, just because like it's not the healthiest of things, particularly candy. Particularly a grown man having candy. It usually tends to have to be a special occasion. Come on, brother. Anyways, I'm not hating, but just generally speaking, sweets are not bad. Fruits are beautiful. Cakes, and additionally, particularly on occasion. But even when the occasion is a daily basis. But anyways, it's just mindfulness all around, moderation. Particularly with these type of experiences. So anyways, long time since I had this type of candy. I went on a candy binge maybe a year ago, but that's another story. A lot of it is nostalgia. A lot of it is just like recollecting my memory, remembering my childhood, my boyhood, family, community, and additionally. So anyways, yesterday I had the occasion, had about $2 on a gift card. Went to the corner store after a long day uploading joints and getting ready to relax, calling up the weekend and everything else like that. And an hour after Juma it is at this moment. Wow, I gotta upload this joint too. Wada. Okay, come on. Alright, Iba. I got Starburst. I was supposed to do this abbreviated version. Expensive, but it is what it is. Had the option between the Mamba, which is preferable. Starburst has further rooted nostalgia, but Mamba has serious competitively similarly rooted nostalgia. Skittles is another one, but Skittles, if I recall, has some gelatin or something like that, so didn't even look at that. There was the king size version, there was the small size version. King size version was like $3.50. That's beyond what I got at the moment on this card. The small version, $1.50. So okay, got that. The Mamba was considered a king size, so that was an option. Got the Starburst. Now the Starburst, to be honest, is actually rather pleasurable. Yeah, to be honest about that. I mean, it was nostalgia, and then after I was fatigued, had a nice meal with the spicy, so then had some candy afterwards. So anyways, that was that. Now, when I was looking at the ingredients when I purchased the Starburst, the ingredients: color 5, color 6, color 4, color 2. What is that? Seriously, what is that? Is that even like? But not to worry. Eventually, I found the declaration that the candy actually does also include genetically modified substance. So there has to be at least something quasi-natural. And now I say that like humorously, sarcastically, but actually actualistically, because when I was trying to figure out if I'm just eating like straight up plastic and dye, the fact that something was genetically modified and tells me that at least there's some kind of plant here, even though it may be only 50% plant. So it wasn't all just plastic. So anyways, that's the side note, humor. But what that provides is the consideration of the democracy of digestion, and meaning that what if and what is what the situation whereby all the ingredients of the materials that you consume have a vote in your body about what you experience, and further. So and you think about like what those how those ingredients might vote concerning the conditions in your body. If those ingredients are hostile and angry, what their vote might be in terms of your digestion and your health and well-being, your assimilation of the materials into the fabric of your being. If it's dead animals that were in a factory so long, where's their vote going to be? What's their policies going to be? Are the ingredients going to be cohesive with each other? Are they going to be cohesive with your previous meal, or what you had for the rest of the preceding week? But that's just that consideration for with this whole huge entrenchment in the psyche of democracy. The notion of the ingredients that you digest having a democracy within your digestive system, and how that democracy manifests. What is it? How imperialistic is? How natural is it? How pious is it? So that's a consideration. Now, along those lines, we get to the final joint. This one is titled "The Polymer Protocols," and so basically, it's this. It's actually like a policy type joint. So the idea is that we know plastic goes into the seas. We know that animals sadly consume a lot of the plastics. The fish eat plastic beads and containers, and some live for a while, some die quickly. There are animals that are choking, dolphins, and additionally with plastic bags and containers and fishing nets, and additionally birds that eat fish that then consume those beads, and the beads and plastic items don't go anywhere, and just then eventually the bird is undone by the consumption of that plastic. So we know that it exists. We know that it happens way further than we would like to think and that we'd like to know, but it's huge. So the idea is getting an idea of how much that actually happens, how much, like in a year, that actually happens from a study, and we're going to the scientific method of doing this. But however, to do a study about like how often it occurs in certain circumstances, and then from that being able to extrapolate for the entirety of the world how much it occurs around the world. So then when we get a basic finite number about how much plastic is actually consumed by animals across the board, whether they're living or dead, how much plastic is consumed by animals, then we look at another figure. The other figure is how much plastic is produced from humanoids, from human beings. And so we get a ratio of the total amount of plastic that's produced to the total amount of plastic that is consumed by particularly sea animals. We'll just keep it to sea animals at this moment. So we got that ratio. Then from that ratio, we can look at people's individual behavior. So how much plastic? So we can look at, like, for every like kilo of plastic that's consumed, maybe a gram of for every kilo of plastic that is made, then perhaps there's a gram of plastic that is consumed by sea life. Now I'm just pulling that out of thin air, that statistic, that ratio, but just as an example, as a scenario. So if we look at that, then we look at how much plastic a person, an individual, consumes in a year. And again, that's a different term between plastic being manufactured and plastic being consumed, but we can work out those finities some way. But I mean, again, this is coming from the heart. This is coming from the place of genuineness. So it's not a matter of like being ticky-tack or whatever else, but just like, okay, get a general idea for this. So how much plastic is being used, whether it's recycled or otherwise, but how much plastic is out there, and then how much are we doing it? How much are we contributing to that? And what's like the per amount? Meaning, like, how much plastic am I consuming with bags, and additionally, so if I've consumed a kilo of bags, if I've like purchased things, gotten processed foods and plastic packaging, and additionally, and all that by the end of the year has added up to a kilo, then here's the policy. For every, since the standard in this scenario, since the standard ratio is 1 kilo of plastic produced, out of that 1 gram of plastic is consumed by a sea animal, then the consideration of this policy is that for every kilo of plastic a person consumes through all the different purchases, and additionally, then that person has to eat a gram of plastic. How about that? So that's a policy. Now that's, whoa, wait a minute, you talking about imposition, everything else like that, taxation, reminder, or we can just look towards the traditional precepts of eye for eye, life for life. And except this one is, what is it? Plastic for plastic? No, we got another word for this. No, it is plastic for plastic. Eye for eye, tooth for tooth, plastic for plastic. So it's the next step. It's the next step from carbon footprint to the plastic mouthful. That's the next standard. How about that? The plastic mouthful. You consumed a kilogram of plastic this year. Your quota, your requirement is a consumption of 1 gram of plastic. I don't like that, but yo, serious. If we don't, what are we doing? Come on, we're already doing it. So if we don't like it, step up. And again, it's the polymer protocol. What that mean, polymer? How about that? The many C's. Hi-ya. So with that being said, I imagine that might be the screenshot, the thumbprint, me with my big teeth, my rotting teeth, and all them things. So that's what we got to share today. After 2.5 hours, amidst the coronation of His Most High, see, I'm tired. Amidst the coronation of His Majesty Haile Selassie, Her Majesty Waizaramanen, in the providence, grace, and will of the Most High, that we commemorate in this time frame. These are some thoughts that are shared about the moment that is shared. And with that moment of thoughts, I share salutations. Blessed love and peace in Rastafari. All thanks and praise to the Most High. Respect and honor to all our ancestors, all our prophets, all our sages, past and present, known and unknown. Respect and honor to His Majesty Haile Selassie and Her Majesty Waizaramanen. One perfect love. Namaste. Assalamu alaikum. Ado.